So you want to be a city manager or a county administrator? Well, this is the first video in a series, and it's going to answer some of the basic questions about what does it take to be a city manager or a county administrator or someone in local government management. We're going to interview several of those folks who do this for a living, and you're going to hear directly from them what it takes to be in local government.
Jerome Fletcher, City Manager, City of Northport, Florida.
My name is Reese Goad. I'm the City Manager in Tallahassee, the capital city of Florida. We have a population of 200,000. We're the regional seat of population.
Hi, I'm Sarah Campbell. I'm the Town Manager for the Town of Orange Park. We're in Clay County, which is Northeast Florida, and we share a boundary with the city of Jacksonville, but we're a small town of just under 10,000 residents.
Hi, I'm Jorge Gonzalez. I am the Village Manager for Bal Harbor Village, a suburb community just north of Miami Beach in South Florida. I have been the village manager for the past 10 years, and I have been a city manager for over 24 years of my career.
Jerome, what does it take to be a good city manager?
I think there are several key qualities that you want to have as you become a city manager. The first meaning that you need to have some logic in what you do and how you think. You have to be able to follow the rules, also knowing that you are doing the best for the most people, and sometimes those don't always are consistent with each other. So if you have the logic and the ability to do the best, I think that will make you great. You also have to have a love for public service. This is not something that you can do to get your name recognized or to build your brand in a way that outshines the community. That public service, that public administration, which is why we do what we do, has to be there in order for you to be a good city manager. And you have to be able to have good relationships with a diverse group of individuals.
Yeah, everything from the constituents
Absolutely.
to the commissioners.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When pleasing the public, you have to know and understand that there's a high level of empathy of what they're going through so that you can relate to how you solve their problems. And the commission, you have to relate to what their goals are, which is to make sure that they do the best for the most number of people. So doing that, if you do those things, I think you will be successful.
And on top of that, you have to be a good manager of the people that report to you.
Absolutely. Your staff and caring about them more than you care about your own outcome of happiness is critical. You have to put them first.
And I think our viewers are going to see that throughout the course of this, you said something and I want to touch on, which is you have to be willing to do good things. You have to be willing to serve, but you don't get the recognition. Somebody else cuts the ribbon.
Absolutely. I tell everyone all the time, it is not about me. It is never about me. You do things for the people you serve. You do things for the people you love, and your happiness is a byproduct of their success and happiness.
I think for me, it's about balance, about balancing following the rule of law and order and policies, but also being creative and working with the community on interesting solutions. So you have to hold both things in balance all the time.
Is there any special training that goes into that or a special background you think is advantageous?
Not necessarily. I think a wide variety of background is helpful. You never know when something in your background, I worked at Burger King in high school. Customer service has been a part of my career since then. And so being able to speak to customers and residents and reframe it and the services that you're providing is part of it.
When you're looking and evaluating staff and somebody comes to you and says, I'd like to be a city manager, what attributes do you look for in that person to say, I think this person would be a good city manager, or conversely, I don't think they have the right skill set?
Yeah. I think they have to be able to see the big picture. I think there are some people who can get too narrowly focused. You have to think outside of the organization to the county, the state, and the federal level. And I think you have to have a thick skin. I think if you're going to take things too personally, you probably won't succeed in that type of a system.
Why is that?
You're subject to criticism all of the time from many angles, from the public, from the council, from our employees, and we're kind of at the pinch point in the middle of an hourglass, if you will. And so you have to be resilient and absorb that from any different angle.
What keeps you motivated to get through those criticisms?
I love our community and I love the work that we do, and I try to win over one person at a time by proving to them that we're behaving ethically and legally and that we have their best interest in mind. And I've been in the organization long enough that we've built a good reputation.
You know what, I'm probably still learning that answer, but this is my 7th year as city manager, and I think when we're talking to other people, reflecting on really what makes us good, it's not being a subject matter expert. Many would say, hey, you need to know all these things and all the things that your city does. I think you have to be situational. We put out a lot of fires every day, but we can't only focus on the fires. We've got to focus on the big picture. We've got to build relationships with those that we serve, whether it's the commissioners or our citizens. So just a lot of flexibility.
And you were a subject matter expert in your area before you rose to city manager.
Absolutely. I think we probably all were and have been, but you almost have to put that aside and really, look at a higher level, be, at a bigger picture view, and be willing to adjust and adapt. That's what we do every day, all day. We're adjusting and adapting to the circumstances of the day and in the future. And so you've got to be able to put up with a lot of arrows. That kind of comes with the territory, that people aren't going to be so happy with what you're doing, but you've got to be focused and flexible and really willing to work with whoever you're working with, meet them where they are. So I think that's kind of a key ingredient. It's not just being smart and trained in what you do, but can you adapt to the circumstance?
Well, what I liked about what you said is every day you have fires to put out, but by focusing on the fires, you can lose sight of the larger strategic vision. And that's part of the challenge of being in the city.
Absolutely. I mean, when we're all done, they're not going to measure us in how well we put our fires out every day. It's just not going to be the case. What did we accomplish? Did we make a difference? Did we move the ball forward? So that's the balancing of the firefighting, the daily issues, and doing a good job there, making your community strong, but also accomplishing things that's in line with the direction of your city commission or city council.
There's a lot that goes into that, Steve, of course. And your personality has to be something that is suited for this kind of work. It's oftentimes kind of lonely at the top. And so not everybody understands what you do as a city manager. You have to have really great people skills. You're dealing with all kinds of people. You're dealing with your elected officials, your top city management team, or your lowest rung employees, and all of the residents who have something to say and care about what you're doing. And so I think, having that kind of ability to have that interpersonal skill is vital. You also have to have vision. You have to have the ability to lead people and get them to do things that they maybe think they can't do. You have to have a thick skin too, because, it's easy to criticize what we do. Oftentimes the accolades come quietly somewhere else, but when they want to criticize you, they will, and they will do it publicly. So you have to have that ability to kind of take that and not personalize it, understand the critique for what it's coming from and why it is, and then, improve from that. But the most important thing is it's got to be the fire in the belly. You got to want to serve. You want to do something good for the public.
For those looking at this video, they're presumably folks who are interested in local government, whether that's with a county or a city, being a county administrator, city manager, or somebody in city or county management,
Right.
Not necessarily the tip of the spear, as it were. What would you say to them if they're contemplating this, saying, what should they do for self-evaluation to decide before jumping into this pond that do I have those skills or not? What advice would you give to somebody who's watching this and thinking, would I make a good city manager?
Right. I think it's about, understanding how the system works, that you report to 5 bosses, but you don't report to them as individuals. You report to them as a collective. So can you work for a group of people and understanding that they have a political role, but this role is not political. This is about administering a high-performance organization to the best of your ability. And again, you have to hold many things in balance, big picture to small picture. So it's about time management. It's about policy development. It's about relationships with people. It's really big picture. And you have to understand for yourself whether you can move through all of those things simultaneously and not become frustrated by it.
And so what's interesting about what you're saying is you use the pinch point. You're like the center of the hourglass.
Yeah.
So you have to report to a group,
Yes.
5, 7, 9,
Right.
Or more in some cases. individuals, balancing that. But then you also have to turn around and be the manager and the leader and the boss, as it were,
Right.
in some cases of hundreds of staff people.
Right.
How do you manage both of those two? I mean, those are two very different roles. One's almost subordinate to a group.
is.
One is the leader of a group.
It is. It is. You have to hold both things in balance. So I have 5 bosses and I have 6 direct reports and my department heads, and they are the subject matter experts in their areas. So my job is not to come in and say, this is how you need to run your department. I want to have a collaborative relationship with them and understand what would make them the most successful in their role. And it's about letting go of a lot of control in some ways. As OCD as I could be and as tidy as I want things to be, sometimes you have to let go of those things and work with your team and see the success through their eyes.
I think you have to, one, realize if you are ready for the transparency and the public scrutiny of being in this role. It's a role where everything that you do will be judged, and things that you've done before you got into that role will also be judged. So you have to...
If somebody started a road before you,
Yes.
you get there, you get blamed for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you have to be willing to accept that. You can't point fingers and you can't deflect the blame. The buck stops with you, so you have to handle those situations. Normally, there are a lot of transferable skills, whether you come from in government or outside of government, whether they're leadership, customer service, critical thinking. All of those have to be sort of implemented into a good city manager so that they can be well-rounded to make the best decisions.
So what you're saying is, you get to take all the blame, but you don't want to get any of the credit.
That when you get credit, you defer it to those who did the hard work in front of you, who is normally your staff and or the commission.
And so that servant's heart is the core of that.
Absolutely. We are public servants, and sometimes it don't always feel that way. Sometimes we feel like public punching bags. But at the end of the day, you have to recognize that you're doing a great value for your community.
So it sounds to me like what you're saying is if I want to be a city manager, I have to have the heart to say, I'm willing to see good things get done, prevent bad things from happening, but someone else is going to get the credit. Either my staff or my commission, but I stay in the middle.
Correct. There's a certain level of self-sacrifice that happens in this job, and you have to be comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable with it, then you're not going to last very long, or you're going to end up making decisions that are more serving to you than they are for the public.
So what are the upsides?
Well, the upsides are knowing that you are providing a value back straight to your community at local government levels. You see the most impact to the community. You can walk out and see it and touch it every single day. And you're also leading the way by mentoring a great group of people and making sure that you bring out the best in them in their professional careers. So whether it's through the personal community interaction or the professional growth that you see in others, leaders, building leaders, it's very, very rewarding, even on days where it doesn't feel that way.
You touched a little bit about being a punching bag. Would you see that as a downside, or do you see that as just compart with the territory?
I think it comes with the territory. I think you have to not take it personally. You know, even though some people might make it personal,
Sure.
You still can't take it personally. But at the end of the day, you're going to look back, and everyone's going to look back and see what their legacy looked like and where they were at. And I want a legacy that says, I came in, I created, I made a difference, and you can point to and touch tangible outcomes that happened while you were there. That's what's going to be fulfilling. And when people remember you, they should remember you in a way of being a producer of good outcomes, not good controversy.
Any examples in your own community that you say when you drive by it or you see, you say, I helped make that happen? Give us a couple.
Oh my goodness, Welland Park.
Because this is the inspiration, right?
Yeah,
To say,
absolutely.
become a city manager because you can see these kind of things.
Absolutely. So Welland Park is one of the fastest growing master plan communities in the country right now. And it is a huge testament to what happens when you build and influence the quality of life of not only homes, but there's a walkable downtown, there's a lake, there's a marriage hall. People just got married there this weekend. You see all the economic development that is happening in that area that is going to take this city to the next level. And when you look at that point in history, people are going to say you were there and you had a hand in that.
And you knew it happened.
Absolutely.
Although the reality is, I think from your prior comments, that you won't be known. It won't be
Correct.
Jerome Fletcher Park that they're getting married at, but it might be named after the mayor.
Correct. My statue will be there, but I will be long gone. But also, you know, we're also developing a warm mineral springs that we have in our community. That's one of the rarest assets in the country. And now, at this particular moment, we are renovating that and developing that out so that it will be an asset of attraction and tourism for many, many years to come. Those are the kind of things that you can hang your hat on while you're still doing the day-to-day operations that citizens have and must need to sustain their quality of life.
It's a great job. I would encourage anybody to consider it, but you got to be ready for it and you got to want it. Not everybody's suited to do that. Whatever job you're in local government, when you step into the role of city manager, it's an entirely different proposition.
In what way?
It's much more public. You're much more scrutinized. You are on the spot all the time. You're being evaluated. Everything you say, everything you do. And so if you're not ready for that kind of scrutiny and that kind of public spotlight, then I would urge you to really consider whether you're ready for that role. If you can accept that, and the truth is that as a city manager, you spend more time managing people than you do
Both the commission and your staff.
exactly, versus actually doing the stuff that you thought you were doing and you were good at, whether it's a budget director or an assistant city manager or a planner. You don't do a lot of that anymore. You're spending a lot of your time managing the people and managing the processes. And if you really like to roll up your sleeves and do the things that put a budget together, then city management may not be the role you're looking for. But if you can lead that and delegate, then it is for you.
Okay, so what you're saying is you're not going to get a lot of credit for the good things you do. You're going to get a lot of the blame. So having the thick skin, but that's countered by a strong internal desire to serve the public.
Serve the public, and you do get to do a lot of great things. You do build those parks. You do get to open up those pools or those senior centers, those things that when you see the smile on the kids' face as they go down a slide, that's gratifying.
Yeah.
That's gratifying.
That's very cool.
And I think it goes back to my previous answer even about the flexibility. I would assume that you're capable. I would assume that, you can learn and, be an expert in broad range of subjects, but are you willing to adapt? Are you willing to take a lot of criticism? Are you willing to be in that environment? Because you've got a long road ahead of you. It's not a short road. And so can you live in the moment, be confident in yourself, and then be flexible and adjusting? So if you don't feel, that calling, if you're like, hey, I just want to be at the best at what I do, it's more complicated than that. So you've got to be willing to be, really eyes wide open, be flexible, adjust, and be willing to work in a hard environment.
I like that sentiment that if you're not self-confident, then those arrows that get flung at you, the public criticism will hurt you, and it will get you off track on trying to achieve something.
Yeah, and I think that's the point of the arrows, by the way.
Yeah.
Is to distract you, to get you off your mark, to not continue moving down the line. So you have to have confidence in yourself. You have to have confidence in your team. And, but also you have to be open to listening to the criticism, right? So you don't shut that out, right? You have to absorb it and adjust. But if you're not confident in what you're doing and believe in what you're doing, you won't be successful.
Well, it's interesting also, you said something about being flexible. And I guess, first of all, I don't think I'd be a good city manager because I would want to do something a certain way. But I think what you're saying is you have to respect the will of the board. It's their city. They got elected to set the strategic direction. Even if you disagree with that, it's your job to implement that.
Oh, 100%. I think that's a given. Day one as city manager, you check your ideology at the door. We all have beliefs and things that we feel, strongly about, but that's not our role. Our role as city manager is to implement the will of the board, and the board could change. The character of the board could change, and you have to be there to provide continuity and future direction for your community. I've, in Tallahassee, largely enjoyed pretty consistent direction, but it's not my ideology, it's theirs. It's their direction. So I have to be capable of implementing that, believing in that as a professional and executing it.
It's kind of like being on the field and somebody's calling the plays that you may not like the plays, but you still have to execute.
That's a great example.
Excellent. Complete the following sentence. I would be a good city manager because.
I would be a good city manager because I put the needs of others ahead of my own. And I ensure that the citizens had what they need in order to have the best quality of life, most of which they don't even recognize because it's so seamless, they don't see the challenge in it. They just know that it happens. We're the ones behind the scenes making sure those things happen that they don't even have to appreciate because we know that it's being done.
There's a lot of professional satisfaction of achieving a very rare and and distinct role. When, I've had this moment where you wonder, you're like, why did I do this? And I've reflected with other city managers, and I'll never forget the story. The one former city manager said, don't forget that you're the city manager of the capital of Florida, the third largest state in the nation. It's kind of important, right? And so there's a lot of reward. There's a lot of satisfaction of having achieved that. And so, I reflect a lot on that.
If you're in this profession long enough, you have opportunities to really leave some legacy things behind in your communities, whether it's those parks or those senior centers. In Florida, we face a lot of different natural disasters. So I've had the occasion to deal with hurricanes and other events like those, and kind of helping at the core level, helping people at the core level is always gratifying. And seeing people as they're suffering through a hurricane and being able to deliver them whatever it is that they needed at that moment, and the thanks that they give you and the smile, that's the credit you take, not the public credit, but you help somebody in a personal way.
Here you were able to make a difference.
Yeah. And so for me, that's what keeps me going is the notion that you're an essential player in this symphony, and without you, the symphony doesn't play the same way. And so you need to make sure that you are getting the gratification of seeing firsthand how the government provides for its local its residents.
First of all, special projects, and it takes a long time to get those done in the government world, especially if you're using a 5-year capital plan. It can take a long time to develop a park.
To rebuild that park.
Or reconstruct a street. But those victories, when they come, are just wonderful. Opening a new park is a great feeling. But also, I have the opportunity to visit our departments on a monthly basis and take a group of employees on a tour throughout the whole organization so they get exposed to areas that they don't normally see. And I am always so touched and overcome by the level of expertise and professionalism that we see in each of these departments, whether it's a water plant operator or a ride along with a police officer in her car, or
and you see the level of professionalism, public service.
And the knowledge that they have and the skill and the expertise. It's just amazing to work with a group of people that talented.
And that's what gets you going.
Absolutely.
Excellent. I love it because one is you're driving by that park, you see kids playing on the swings, you see parents walking with their, with the dog or whatever, and you're like, I helped make that happen.
Exactly.
That's very cool. Exactly. All right, conversely.
Yes.
Conversely, what are the things that make you say, why the heck did I choose this profession?
Sure. Public scrutiny is a big part of it. Sitting in a difficult meeting and explaining your position and your choices can be very challenging. Making sure that the council are the stars of the show, that's important. They get all the glory, we get all the criticism. So you have to be able to have a thick skin to get through that. Time, it takes a lot of evenings and weekends. Every holiday has something going on in our community. So Veterans Day, Memorial Day, being present at those community events, that can take time away from family and things that I might want to do personally for fun. But it's about serving in that public role and living a very public life.
If I'm contemplating getting into this role and I don't have thick skin, are there things you can do to help you improve that? Or is that something that's endemic and you go, look, if you're going to be sensitive to this stuff and you're going to take this stuff too personally, this is not the career path for you. Can you work on that?
I think it depends on the personality. I certainly have staff members who've taken things so personally, and you've seen them, flare up in a meeting, tempers rise. And so having conversations with them afterwards, you really have to set your emotions aside. I've had employees who talk to their counselors about it, talk to their pastor about it, talk to people in their family about it. And some people are able to move through it and move past it. It's a very unusual career where you have to take your emotions and set them aside when you walk into those public meetings.
Well, and especially because it's an emotional job where you're actually impacting. If you do something good,
right,
you impact the community. If you do something that goes wrong, a breaking of a sewer main that was improperly installed, overflowing of a water treatment plant.
Right.
Those are legitimate criticisms. You got to have to deal with those.
Yeah. And safety, public safety, I think, is our number one priority. And so when the police chief says we cannot do something, or the fire chief says you must do something, we have to remember that that's for all of our safety, even though it might not be the popular opinion. we need to respect their position on those things.
You know, we joke a little bit about at a cocktail party, you're going to be a really popular person, either popular in a positive sense or popular in an unpositive sense,
Right.
because you know everything that's going on in the city.
Yeah.
But talk about the duality of that. At a cocktail party, you're the most knowledgeable person about what's going on. You know about the new sewer project,
Right.
the road widening project, the
Right.
tax rate, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But in the commission meeting, you have real experts behind you. How does that work? That sometimes you're the most knowledgeable, sometimes you're not.
I have enough information to make me dangerous, right? So in Pilates class, the ladies all want to know about street closures and things like that. But I've been to birthday parties where someone has said, "I can't believe you're showing your face here." So you have to really be careful about how you present yourself in the community. But again, no matter how critical that might feel in that moment, to rise above it and take the high road. That's what we
and I
have
think
to
that's
do.
the other part of the thick skin argument is, are you capable of having a job where you're always being watched,
Yes,
or at least possibly being watched? And so
Yes.
you have to control yourself,
Certainly.
and govern yourself accordingly.
Yeah.
Complete this sentence. I probably would not be a good city manager because.
I probably would not be a good city manager because I was overly sensitive. I believe that in this day and age, everyone is sensitive about everything. And in this role, you just cannot let that happen. You've got to be able to accept criticism, constructive or not, and still be able to perform at a high level.
So if you don't have thick skin, being a city manager is not for you. Now, that doesn't mean don't go into local government, because if you're the Parks and Rec director, you're probably not going to be, or within management of a local government, you're probably not going to be the one that they want to bring the guillotine for.
Absolutely. There is a great value, and I cannot say this strong enough, to being number two or the deputy, wherever you are working at, to be shielded from some of the external noise, so to speak. And you can still have a great impact and a great long career. It's a phenomenal opportunity to serve at the highest level, but you're still helping leaders become better leaders. I think that when you're in a leadership role, and that role is the leadership role as well, you have an obligation to make sure that you train up the next level behind you.
Don't become a city manager or a county administrator if you can't take the criticism, if you're not confident in yourself and your ability to execute, and you need a lot of outside validation. If you need others to validate you, don't do it, because you'll need to be confident, you'll need to validate yourself, and you got to take the criticism.
So what you're saying is, if you want somebody to love you, get a dog?
Maybe a rabbit.
That's perfect.
The job is very encompassing. It is all consuming if you allow it. So the first thing I would tell you is, if you are a micromanager, you can't delegate, you don't trust, you have to do it yourself for it to be done right, it's not your job, because there aren't enough hours in the day to do all of the things that you need to do. You need to be able to rely on the staff, rely on others, and be able to trust that the work and the guidance you've given them, that they're going to bring you back the product you're looking for. But if you need to be that perfectionist that has to write the memo, edit it, and review it, you just can't do it. There's just not enough time in the day.
Excellent.
In addition, we mentioned earlier about thick skin. If you can't take criticism,
And public criticism.
this is one of the fewest jobs that I am aware of where you're evaluated generally most days, but certainly when it's time to do your annual evaluation, it's done in public, on TV, on the internet, for everybody to see. And if that is a process that is intimidating or frightening to you, then maybe you ought to think about something else, because that is how it's done.
So it sounds to me like you're not going to get the kudos, but if something breaks, either from your staff end, you got to take those bullets.
Yes.
And in the public eye, you got to take those bullets.
Yeah, the kudos will come either self-initiated, or if you have good relationships with your council, they'll tell you, great job, but they're not going to give you the credit for it. Publicly, it is the elected official who's going to sit there and cut the ribbon or give the speech or welcome the
So
group.
if you're the kind of person that needs those public accolades, run for the commission. Don't be the
Probably better advice, yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Reese, we talked a lot about having to be flexible, having to take the barbs from adversaries or people who don't like the strategic direction, ironically, of the city government. But what are the upsides of being a city manager? What do you derive day in, day out that you say, I love this job?
You probably get a bunch of cheesy answers on this, right? Because I think that's who we are as public servants, these kind of things. But it's a great profession. And let's be honest. In my case, I'm responsible for 27 different department areas that do all kinds of different things. The airport and the police department, the fire department, the utilities. It's pretty exciting, to be honest with you. So you're able to manage that, influence that, and really put your thumbprint on it. So the reward is being able to make a difference, but being the leader of these things that are so important to a community that do make a difference. And you go to any city you want to, they have their own uniqueness of how they're made up and what you're in charge of. That's pretty exciting. So it's an attractive profession. It's noble, right? You're serving the public, but you're able to probably exercise all the skills you ever developed plus some, and then continue to grow, exponentially.
Well, I don't think it's a cheesy answer, because the reality of it is, if you get to put get a federal grant to put a new wing on the airport or to build a new park, and you see kids playing there, if you're not deriving satisfaction from that, you're not getting any job satisfaction, because at the end of the day, the ribbon cutter at the airport or at the park is not going to be you.
It's not me.
It's going to be the mayor or someone like that.
That's right.
So,
That's exactly right. But you had a part in it.
Yeah, exactly. And you helped make it happen.
Yeah.
The thing I want to look back on is to be able to say that we handled problems that others did not. There is a long-standing action in government to kick the can down the road. The reason why we have the biggest noise from the community and those who don't like what we're doing is because we're doing the hard things that others didn't do before us. I want someone to come back and say they didn't punt the ball on anything. They figured it out. They made a way for it to happen. They did it with the most minimal negative impact to the community, and they were successful in one shape, form, or fashion.
Excellent. I think things like repairing sewer lines.
Yes.
You're not going to get any credit for that, but as water's leaching into the system, it's overtaxing your wastewater treatment plant. No one's going to stand up and cheer you repaired the sewer lines.
Right.
But, you didn't kick that can down the road.
Those are the non-sexy projects, and we're recovering from Ian, which left us a lot of infrastructure challenges. And to go back to someone and say, well, we're widening a road or we're rebuilding a building, they're like, give me something that I can wrap my head around. And ultimately, we're responsible for making sure the infrastructure of the city is good today, tomorrow, and for the next generation. So it has to be done.
Is there anything you could point to specifically that you say, that was a really cool thing that I did?
I'm always about the capital programs that we've built.
Yeah.
And so,
because like I reduced the budget, I got the sewers lined or whatever.
Yeah, no. For me, it's always been about when we are out opening a new park and seeing the kids run and for the first time enjoying something that they didn't have before and being able to vision and create that and then deliver it. If you stay in the profession and if you stay in your position long enough, you can come up with the idea and then you can get to the closing. Sometimes the manager isn't there. The manager who created the idea isn't there to see it fulfilled. And so for me, I've had that opportunity quite often, and it's really that's the best, is to open something new that didn't exist before and say, hey, see, this is what we were talking about.
And you made a difference for the families that live there.
For them and for the future, because anything you build like that is 20, 30 years of a legacy that they then get to use. And so how many generations of kids will be able to go through and enjoy that park?
So that's where you get the satisfaction, that's driving by that park going, I helped make that happen.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I was glad I was a city manager because of the people I got to work with. And that's in our organization and in our community and through our nonprofits. There are people doing wonderful, wonderful work in our communities, and people who, come from all walks of life to make a city or a town. And there are resources, and sometimes we think we're the only ones who have all the information, but there are wonderful resources in our community and people who are really willing to give of their time and their efforts, and it makes a beautiful, beautiful place to live.
That's a great answer, because I would have thought it would have been, I helped build that park, I got that bridge open, I got that public area open to but where your sentiment is the people you got to work with and the people you got to enjoy.
Yeah.
And I guess to some degree that includes the crank who stands up at the city council meeting, because they're there because they care about their community. They may not do a good job of presenting it in an agreeable way.
And if they are an expert in a particular area, for instance, we had a mold issue, but I know one man was very knowledgeable about air quality. That was the perfect opportunity to reach out to them, even though they're normally critical of us, to tap into their wealth of knowledge. Or somebody's an expert in cul-de-sac or roundabout design. And so tapping into that person's expertise and saying, how can you help our community right now? We need you in this moment.
What piece of advice would you give to somebody wanting to consider this?
I would spend time with managers. I think managers are very open and giving of their time. Just shadow somebody for as long as they'll let you, so that you can see the myriad experiences that you get exposed to over the course of a week, and see what you think.
So if I'm interested in becoming a city manager or county manager, or just getting into local government, you would advise I call my local city manager, share that with them, maybe put me in touch with a deputy or somebody on your staff, and they'd be willing and open to
I think they absolutely would.
That's really cool.
The network of city managers in this state has been incredibly supportive to me and always very open to answer any questions that I have.